Welcome to the Move Freely podcast, where you will learn skills that help you move freely in every aspect of your life. Right, so this podcast is centered around helping people learn new techniques, new skills to help them move freely in whatever environments they find themselves in. When you feel confident with yourself, when you feel comfortable, when you feel you know what you're doing, you know what story you're telling, moving freely becomes far more possible. So what I would like us to focus on today is learning about self-acceptance and really at the heart of it, self-esteem. So I have Lisa from Life Train with me today, a longtime friend of mine, one of my greatest teachers, one of my greatest mirrors. And we're going to be discussing how we achieve this space of self-acceptance. And in fact, I was chatting to Lisa some time ago, and she was saying, you know, she teaches the most incredible people how to love themselves. And I feel the same way when I'm teaching individuals. I look at you and I think, you've got it all going for you. You're smart, you're intelligent, you're beautiful, you've got a great personality. Where's this sense of lack coming from? And in fact, Lisa, weren't you saying that you were researching most highly searched keywords? And what did you find?
Hello, Court. So lovely to be here. So I was researching the most highly searched keywords. And the one that came up with regards to the work that I do is self-esteem, which shows that so many of us human beings have a low sense of self-esteem, which is really sad because I see the most incredible, phenomenal women who, like you said, have so much going for them, yet they just feel so unworthy.
Right. And what do you think is causing that? What's creating this sense of unworthiness, this feeling that they're not good enough, that they're not measuring up?
So there's really a couple of things that come into play here. And first of all, society, the society in which we live in, you know, through the media and through the images that we're looking every single day, we are programmed and conditioned to believe that we are not good enough. I believe below the surface, in the collective unconscious of all human beings, we all have a very similar belief that runs us, and that is, I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy. And if we look at it from a perspective of the collective unconscious, it's all of the thoughts that people think and the underlying energy or tonality of the essence of who it is that we are that gets sent into this collective unconscious. So it's a lot of the times of stuff that's not spoken about, but there's so much of it that it essentially becomes a part of our DNA as human beings. So that's the one side. And then the other side is I really, truly believe that our disconnect from self and our lack of self-worth is all connected to our upbringing and to our parents. And you know that might trigger some people because they might say, but what are you talking about? Because I love my children so much and there's no way that my child could ever have been brought up in a house where they feel unworthy. But if we look at it from a perspective of the child's mind, the child's mind between the ages of 0 and 7, when we're our most influential, where our conditioning happens through our environment as well as our parents and our teachers, this is really where we begin to create our story around ourselves and where we really create our core beliefs about ourselves. So even though you may have had the most loving, amazing, supportive parents, there could have been just one day where you came home from primary school, nursery school, and you had painted this beautiful picture. And you came up to your mom and you said, Mom, look at this picture that I've painted for you. And not knowing or being able to acknowledge because of the parts of your brain that had been developed only so much at that age. And your mom turns around to you and she says, I can't look at your picture now, I'm busy. As a little small child, just that one little incident has such a huge impact on us as a child, because we don't have the part of the brain, the hypothalamus, which is our storytelling narrative, which says, Mom reacted like that because she was busy. We then, through the lenses, our contextual lenses, make that story mean something about ourselves. So if we look at this journey of like self-worth and all of these things, and when we really work at unpacking these things, beneath each and every single one of our beliefs about not being worthy, not being good enough, or lack, is this incident or this aspect that happened to us as a child where our parents did something or our teachers did something, and we took that on and we made it mean something about us.
Gotcha.
Because, you know, as we mentioned in our other conversation, we are here as human beings to evolve. So as much as this is painful, this feeling of not feeling good enough, having lack, etc., if on some level we didn't have this, then it wouldn't push us to evolve ourselves or to make ourselves better or to grow ourselves in any way, because there would be no driving force, like no driving factor to evolve as a human being species.
Now, how does it work? For example, I can say, oh yes, I've got feelings of parental rejection because I remember a time when I was shouted at for A, B, and C. So now I carry around that feeling on my shoulders. Just because I acknowledge that it came from that, how does that help me?
So essentially, it's about shifting our consciousness perspective. So if we look at the mind, right, and the mind is essentially this computer system that controls our entire being. So Albert Einstein has a beautiful quote. He says, "You cannot change or fix something with the same consciousness that created it." So
Right.
our brain is firing all these different motor neurons, these different pathways, like doing, firing the same. And the only way that we can change that is being able to shift our perspective, and in effect, that shifts our consciousness. So it's like, for the past 30 years, you've been running in a certain way, same beliefs, same thought patterns, etc., etc. It's like we have this closet underneath our stairs. You know, a lot of people have closets or garages, and we just throw our stuff in there, like throw this, throw that. It's like
mine's horrific. It's got everything under there for the last 5 years.
And we become like these hoarders, right? So if your closet or your garage has been like that for 5 years and you haven't done any cleaning out of it, or you haven't gone through it, can you imagine if no one has acknowledged or seen what's actually going on in their minds and their brains and what's running them, and they are 30 years old? All of that stuff, it's stuck up there in your mind, all of those beliefs, all of those patterns that then become a self-fulfilling prophecy of, if you believe that you are not worthy, if you believe that no one loves you and you can't have love in your life, what you believe to be true is the truth of your life. So you will continue to create this life of lack and to create this life of whatever you believe to be true. So acknowledge and see it. So when you ask, okay, cool, I just understand it and I see it. Absolutely. So it's about unpacking. It's about really going underneath the staircase and beginning to clear out, what do I believe about myself? Where do those beliefs come from? What do I believe about money and abundance? Where do those beliefs come from? What did my parents believe about money and abundance? What do I believe about love and relationships? What was my relationship like? Or what was the relationship like between my parents? Because as a young child, great analogy, just came up with this. It's like we are a USB flash stick, and our parents are the hard drive. And we're just going, download, download, download. And we're literally just taking on everything that their parents gave to them. And if we don't change these beliefs about ourselves or shift these aspects of ourselves or change our consciousness, guess what happens? Our child comes along and takes those beliefs from us.
Yes.
So if we can look at family lines, like a lot of the time, let's look at example, some families, generation after generation, all the children never have money issues or abundance issues. And if you can go back in their family line, it's as though this knowledge has just been passed on to them, and they just take this on because it's beliefs that they carry within them.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, there were moments during my family's history, while I've been with my parents, where there was no money. So we always had lots of money, and then the money would run out. So there was constant abundance and then nothing. So that's what I learned. Always abundance, nothing, which is terrible. You never want to be in that space of lacking, especially finances. We know that it puts you in an incredibly uncomfortable space. So that is one lesson that I have taken on, that I've said I always want to try my best to make sure that I always have nest eggs squirreled away so that I never have that feeling. So I had a conversation with my husband, and he was saying, I've got enough money soon for us to go and travel around the world for some time. And I said, is there going to be enough money when we come back? So he said, I've just told you I've got enough money. Why are you panicking about having not enough money? And I said, this is something that I have learned. I have learned abundance, and then I have learned nothing. And so that is something that I want to try my best to avoid. And so I will constantly be focused on making sure that there is always enough. And I want you to understand that it's not that I want to work you to the bone like a slave driver, but between the two of us, I need that security. And I suppose what you're saying is that awareness, digging that up, finding why I'm always squirreling or hoarding things away comes from that, and how I can manage that better once I'm aware of it.
100%. And as soon as you have this awareness, the way in which the motor neurons fire in the brain, they fire along a different circuit. So I'll give you a beautiful example. Let's say, let's use my beautiful visualization skills. So I'm living in this beautiful house, and it overlooks this gorgeous road, and I'm busy eating my future life.
That you picked off the trees.
So I'm busy eating this bowl of cereal. Every day is the same. Eating, beautiful, same things happening. One day, boom, there's a car accident in front of me. And I run outside, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what's happened? Everything's okay. I go back down, and I sit, and I carry on eating my cereal. So in my conscious mind, I think that nothing has happened. I'm fine. However, in the unconscious, in the subconscious mind, when there is a trauma that takes place, a pain or a trauma, it essentially creates like a bump, okay? So this is something that we cannot see within ourselves. But essentially what happens is it's a memory that gets created in the body and within the unconscious mind. So the next time something happens like that, I'm going to have this panic attack within my unconscious body. So it's like we keep running on these systems until we can acknowledge what happened and change that. So it's like, then I could have this big fear of crashes or bangs, or like, I'll use myself as an example. Similar with around money. My mother was a single mother, and she always lived hand to mouth, never had enough money. And when I was 13 years old, she didn't have enough money to pay our school fees. So she was phoning a whole bunch of people, asking them for money because we were about to be kicked out of school, and everybody was turning her down. And the memory that I'd blocked out of my subconscious, because it's so connected to pain, and we will do whatever we can to avoid feeling pain, is everybody's saying no to my mom. So when I became an entrepreneur, I always had this cash flow problem. I always didn't have enough money, and I was always living hand to mouth. And it wasn't until I did a coaching session to unpack this, because that's the only way we can really get there, is to create a sense of self-awareness and to ask these questions. Why is my reality in such a way? Where I discovered that I created this belief, and we are run by our beliefs. I created this belief by seeing that nobody could help my mom out with money. I created this belief around money that nobody has any money. So it's not as though the clients weren't there to pay me the money. I wasn't invoicing and asking people for money because I felt such a deep sense of shame around money.
Right.
So at the time, this pain and these unconscious beliefs are always connected to our pain and our shame. And when we don't want to see our pain and our shame, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of always needing to scavenge and hunt for money. Whereas if we can acknowledge that pain and that shame and shift the belief within the consciousness of our mind to one of, I always need to scavenge just in case things run out, to changing the belief of life is so abundant, I am always secure, there is always an abundance of money and experiences around me, then essentially this is the new programming that you create in your brain. And as we create this new programming in our brain, we have these projector systems within inside of us that are connected to our subconscious mind. And the new belief or programming that is running you is one of, there is always abundance, there is always these rich experiences. And essentially these new belief systems and the shift in consciousness create a new reality and life for ourselves.
So is it as simple as saying to yourself, I am wealthy, I have abundance financially? Is that how it works? Is it as easy as that?
So this is the biggest misconception about affirmations. So yes, affirmations are incredibly powerful. However, if you are unconsciously committed to a deep-seated belief that you're unaware of, you can say as many affirmations as you want in your conscious mind, but the unconscious mind, the pain and the shame is a much bigger driving force and factor, that no matter how many times if you say, I am rich, I am wealthy, if on an unconscious level, and if you are connected to a belief system that believes that you are unworthy and that you don't deserve abundance, you can say as many affirmations as you like. If you don't shift this and see this, these will never work, because they don't correlate. And then we can't actually fire and create new programs and new systems within the mind. We have to see this first. We have to really go on that path of self-discovery to unravel as to, I say these affirmations, but why isn't the wealth coming? Why isn't the abundance coming? We need to shift the underlying belief so that these two things can be in alignment.
So what advice would you give to someone? Let's say someone is saying or thinking, I really can't earn any money. Like, no matter how hard I'm trying, I'm visualizing, nothing's happening. So what advice would you give to someone who's in that mindset? How would you advise them to get out of it or to acknowledge it? Did you hear me? I think okay.
Yeah, you freezed for a little bit. So my advice would first be to be able to acknowledge that, why am I trying so hard at something and nothing's shifting? And when there is this resistance, this continued resistance of what I'm putting out isn't mirroring what I'm getting back, that is an indication that we are more unconsciously committed to a different belief. And it's really about beginning this process of unraveling these belief systems. So a lot of the time, the reason why people will go to a coach or, take up a program online, etc., is because there are certain tools that we need in order to unravel these processes. So 2 ways of looking at things. One, I would definitely say seek help with someone who understands how to tap into your unconscious mind, who can take you through a journey or a process of really unraveling these things. And for those people who may not be ready to seek help, I would begin a journaling process. So at the top of the journaling process, I would write, what is the aim here? So the aim is to attract more abundance into my life. And then first of all, before we shift anything, we have to acknowledge with a deep sense of awareness without judgment. If we judge ourselves, we're going back into that pain and that shame point, and we're never going to find any answers. So we have to be really truthful with ourselves from a place of compassion and empathy as to the truth right now. What is my situation right now in this present moment? I have no money. I'm in debt. I'm in the negative. I can't afford to pay my bills. Because if we don't have the awareness as to where we are right now, and if we can't be honest with ourselves, there's no way that we're going to be able to shift that or to change that. Yes. So that would be the first step. And then I would say, I would point up to the thing that we're aiming at, and I'd say, what do I believe about? And let's say it's that they're aiming for more money or abundance, then it would be all those things that are around that aspect of that which they're aiming about. So what are my beliefs about money? What are my beliefs about abundance? What are my beliefs about deserving and self-worth? For instance, if people have a deep-seated belief that money is the root of all evil, we don't want to be evil people.
Yes.
Why on earth would we gain abundance and attract money into our life if it would mean that we would be evil?
Right.
Means that for the rest of our lives, we're never going to have money, because money is tied to this aspect or this belief that I'm an evil person if I have money. Like, it's really about shifting those beliefs. So it's about saying, okay, so I see now that this is what I believe about this specific topic. Then we need to ask ourselves, where did those beliefs come from? We need to begin to unpack those beliefs. And that, when we acknowledge or see those beliefs, those stories as to when we took those beliefs on, that's when the brain and the mind can go, whoa. That's the most important thing we're looking for here, is the aha moment, the light bulb moment. It's the light bulb moment where we have a shift in consciousness.
Yes.
That is the power of this consciousness work that we're trying to do. And once we've had that shift in consciousness, that aha moment, then we can then choose for ourselves. The question is, 1, do I believe this? Do I really believe that the money is the root of all evil? I don't believe that. Money actually brings me joy, abundance, freedom to travel. And then it's about going even deeper to rewrite the belief system. So I believe that money brings me joy, love, and abundance. And when I have abundance or wealth, I can share it with others from a place of love. I can help empower other people's lives. And then that's when we can start doing the affirmation work. I attract abundance into my life because it brings me prosperity. And when I have prosperity, I can share that prosperity with others.
Yes. So I suppose we're talking about self-acceptance here. Okay. Self-acceptance, self-esteem. So does it come down? It seems like it comes down to a deep acknowledgement of who you are, and who you are is often based on your past experiences. And those have programmed you to be in this space. So if you're trying to achieve something, if you're trying to do something and you're meeting resistance, perhaps it's worth you taking a moment to sit down, whether it's with a journal, quiet, meditation, whatever it may be, and to think, what is it? Is there an experience in my life that has created this blockage? And I think what I found sometimes with myself, if I'm trying to do this and I'm journaling, I will write down as many things that I can think of that could be the reason for that. And I will know when I hit the nail on the head of the one that's held me back, or the one that's created this belief. What does that feeling feel like? Can you tell me?
That aha moment, a lot of the time it's connected to something that's quite emotional. Because as I mentioned earlier, it's connected to a pain point or a shame point. So it's like, oh, like that was really sore when we didn't have money, like that
Yes.
felt really uncomfortable when as a little girl, my mom couldn't afford to send me on school camp, And in those moments of discomfort or pain, it's like really being able to sit with yourself and self-nurture yourself in that moment of no judgment, of like, so often we beat ourselves up. We're so hard on ourselves. But when we have these moments of awareness, it's like connecting back to how you felt as that little girl or that little boy who, felt a sense of lack or didn't feel worthy. And it's like going to be with that child, going to be with that little child to say, it's okay and you're safe. And, it's like, I really truly believe that inherently, the reason why, we are so disconnected from self and self-worth, etc., is because there were many points in our lives when we didn't get that love, that nurturing that we so deeply desired. And that pain still sits within us. And it's like, what can we give ourselves now as our older self that our little self needed? And it's about asking ourselves, like, what do I need in this moment of not feeling good enough, or like not feeling loved, or not feeling worthy? And to really tap into your body and say, what can I give you in this moment that is going to make you feel safe, seen, heard, and loved? And the body is so intelligent. The answers sit inside of our bodies, and that answer will always come up. It will say, you need to go and give yourself a hug, or run yourself a nice warm hot bath, or just tell yourself like you're doing an amazing job. You're such a good, beautiful human. It's like about really being able to, it's about really being able to see yourself for who you are.
You're absolutely spot on. I think that's such wonderful wisdom to share with people. And while you were talking about that, it made me think of a meditation that I attended. I was in Guatemala. It was the day before New Year's Eve. So it was the 30th. So I was wandering the streets of this tiny little Guatemalan village that was like a maze. And I came upon a group of people, and they're all standing outside this wooden pyramid. So I say to someone, what are you doing here? And they said, we're going in for a meditation. And this person says to me, and I think you should go. So I was like, well, that's quite a surprise to hear a stranger say that. But anyway, off I go into this beautiful meditation, into this wooden pyramid. And for the first 20 minutes, it's silence. You're shifting around. You're thinking, what are we doing in here? What's going on? And then this beautiful Guatemalan old white-haired woman starts talking. And after some time, she goes, I want you to think about the relationship you have with your mother. So everyone, 50 people, whatever, we're now thinking about this. And she says, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. And she went through all the people in one's life that have an impact. And I remember the tears had started in my eyes, and they had rolled all the way down my chest, because so often we do not give ourselves permission to forgive ourselves. And it was the most incredible weight that was lifted off my shoulders just before I went into the New Year's. And I just thought, what an incredible lesson, and something that we all need to hear so often. We're all human. We've all messed up. We've all stuffed up. You're a human. Forgive yourself. So on that note, I am going to leave the listeners with this bit of advice. Self-acceptance, self-love, self-esteem comes from an acknowledgement of the good and the bad and the ugly, and coming to terms with that and understanding that, yes, those past experiences are going to shape who you are, and that's absolutely fine, and it's right. Because if everything was hunky-dory and normal, how boring this life would be. And so I encourage you all to set out on this journey. Don't look for things that are necessarily wrong. But if there is a disconnect between what you have and what you want, or what you're trying to achieve, that's a direct sign that you need to start acknowledging and digging a little bit deeper. And who knows, through a small acknowledgement, you can make a giant leap. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. That was amazing. Your wisdom is beautiful. What an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Courtney.